Hey there, happy Friday. Welcome to my front porch. I'm Daniel Norton, and I'm a photographer here in New York, and we talk shop here. As usual, I'm doing it in my studio, right, all summer, but it's the fall. It's getting a little cooler. I'm out on my front porch, so let's talk about gear. All right, so this is something that comes up quite a bit, and I think I kind of wanted to walk through the process here, which is the idea of APS-C versus full frame and lenses. So APS-C or crop cameras, for those who don't know, generally there's a set of lenses that are made for them that work, basically they cover the sensor size, right? If you get a full frame lens, it will, in almost every brand that I know of, the full frame lenses will fit on those cameras, and of course they more than cover it. So the question comes up a lot, like, okay, well, I'm pretty serious about photography and I'm in APS-C, should I buy full frame lenses when I'm eventually going to go full frame? So that varies, right? The answer to that question we'll talk about in a minute, but let's just look at one reason not to do that. Why would you continue to buy APS-C lenses? What I would say is, look at yourself realistically where you are. Do you have an exact plan of when you're going to buy this full frame, or is it something that's in the future, right? Because do you really even need a full frame camera? A lot of times people want it, they hear so much great things about it, but if you've been shooting APS-C and let's say you're doing this as a hobby or maybe making a little bit of cash and it's working for you, there's no magic bullet. Like when you go full frame, you're not suddenly going to make more money, right? So I'm not saying don't go full frame, obviously I'm using full frame, but what I am saying is that it's not like, boom, you're full frame. I met many years as a professional photographer using APS-C. I also used medium format, and the APS-C I used for the small stuff, if you will, which is what I think people now just kind of go full frame for everything. But there's reasons, But anyways, we're getting off topic. So the thing about the lenses is that typically they're going to be less expensive, and they're going to be smaller. So think about your overall kit. If you're somebody like me, I rarely just walk around with my camera. And when I do, I have my Leica that I use for street photography. But so my kit, the size of it isn't that important. I mean, obviously I don't want to carry around the biggest lenses in the world when I'm going from, location to location, even if they are in bags. So I don't want it to be huge, but at the same time, it's not that much big of a deal for me to get a slightly larger lens if it's going to give me better quality or more versatility or whatever. But if you're somebody who really travels light or carries the camera on your shoulder, goes hiking, does these kind of things, perhaps these smaller, lighter lenses are going to be good for you. And I'll say that, like, I have a Nikon Z50 that you guys have seen me talk about before that I use for video. I could put my full frame lenses on that. That's an APS-C camera. But I don't. I always use the lens that came with it. I think rarely, once in a while I'll put my really super wide that I have on there, like my fisheye. But pretty much I use the lens that's on it because I grab that camera because it's tiny, right? It's so little, and I use it for exactly that reason, because I want to take that camera and go somewhere, and I don't want to carry around something big. When I put them in my bag next to each other, both lenses collapsed. The collapsed Z50 with the 18-50 versus the Z6 II with the 24-70 is like, you could fit two Z50s in that space, the space it's taken in my bag. So that size is really important. Now, why would you buy full frame? So those are reasons that maybe you want to stick with the APS-C. So if you realistically, you've got a budget, you're planning, you're doing this on a more professional level, or even if you're just doing it as a hobby and you really are, you're going to buy within the next year or so a full frame camera because you've done your research, you know which one you want, you've got the budget, you're putting away a little bit of cash every week, however your finances work for that. You've got a, Christmas bonus coming, or, tax returns or whatever, however money comes in for people. Or you just did a big job and it's going to pay out in 6 months. Maybe that point, and you happen to be also at the same point buying a new lens for whatever reason. Yeah, at that point, I think I'd probably lean towards getting the full frame one, because you know that you're going to want a lens that's going to work with both cameras. You're going to get yourself ahead a little bit, kind of future-proofing a little bit. I think in that case it's worth it. But I also think that as photographers, we often kind of think far to the future because we don't want to make a mistake. But the reality is that gear changes so quickly. It gets updated, it's reviewed, there's gear changes so quickly in this industry that if it's 2 years out or you don't know when out, the chances that there's not going to be like another lens and you're going to be like, oh man, I have version 2 of the lens and now version 2.6 is out, So really, there's almost no way to get ahead of it. We want to think we can get ahead of it, but the reality is we almost never can. So if you definitely are going full frame, and if you don't need the size, then yeah, maybe that's the better way to go. Or I guess the third case would be the lens doesn't exist in APS-C, some super, super fast lens or whatever. But otherwise, I think working with the lenses that are designed for the camera size or whatever that you have is totally fine. You don't need to have the latest, greatest full-frame lens on your APS-C camera to take great images. So what do you guys think? Do you use full-frame lenses on your APS-C? And if so, are you doing that and you don't even have a full-frame camera? Because those are the people I'd like to hear from. But anybody, comment below, please. Go ahead, subscribe if you haven't already, ring the bell, and I'll see you next week.